Is an IUL a scam? Type it into YouTube and you will find 100 videos screaming, yes. Rip off, trash product, run. I am a licensed life insurance agent and I'm going to give you the honest version. The part the outrage videos leave out and the part the salespeople leave out. By the end, you will know exactly what an IUL really is, why it gets a bad name, and whether it actually fits you. No hype in either direction. Quick housekeeping. This is education, not financial, tax, or investment advice. An IUL is a life insurance product, not a stock or a security. Talk to a licensed professional about your specific situation. Cool? Let's go. Let me start by defending the critics, because they are half right. A badly built IUL, sold to the wrong person, with a fantasy illustration, is a genuinely bad deal. It can have high internal costs, it can underperform what you were promised, and it can even collapse if it is not funded right. So if your only experience with an IUL is a pushy agent and a projection that look too good to be true, I get why you think it is a scam. But a tool being misused is not the same as the tool being a fraud. So let's look at what it actually is. An IUL is permanent life insurance. It gives your family a death benefit and it builds a cash value account inside the policy. The part that makes it an IUL is how that cash value grows. It is not a fixed rate and it is not you buying stocks. Your cash value is credited based on the movement of a market index like the S&P 500 through a formula with two key rules. And here's a piece of history that gives this real context. Back in the early 1980s, two worlds were racing to solve the same problem. How do regular people build tax-advantaged money? Wall Street's answer became the modern IRA and the 401k, market accounts with tax perks. Around that same time, the insurance world answered with universal life, flexible, permanent insurance with a cash account you could actually use. One of the early pioneers was the life insurance arm of E.F. Hutton, a giant Wall Street name back then. So this is not some fringe idea invented last year. It grew up right alongside the retirement accounts everybody trusts. Then, in the late 1990s, that universal life chassis got an upgrade. Instead of a fixed interest rate, the cash value could be credited based on a stock market index. And that is where the word indexed comes from. So let's quickly cover what an index even is. An index like the S&P 500 is basically a scoreboard. It tracks the 500 largest public companies in America, bundled into one number that moves up and down with the market. With an IUL, you are not buying those 500 companies. You are earning interest based on how that scoreboard moves inside the rules we are about to cover. That is the piece most people miss. You get the market's movement as a measuring stick without your money actually being in the market. Rule 1 is the floor. In most policies, the floor is 0%. That means in a year, the market falls, your index money does not fall with it. It is credited 0 and keeps what it had. Rule 2 is the cap, or a participation rate. That limits your gain in an up year, say to around 9 or 10%, depending on the policy and the year. So the trade is simple. You give up some of the high end in exchange for never taking a market loss on that money. Let me make that real with a number everybody remembers. In 2008, the S&P 500 fell about 38%. If you had $100,000 directly in an index fund, you watched it drop towards $62,000. Painful, and it takes years just to climb back to even. Now, the indexed account with a floor, that same year, it is credited 0. It does not gain, but it does not lose. You still have your $100,000. Then, when the market recovers the next year, you participate in the gain up to your cap. You never had to dig out of a hole. That is the entire appeal in one story, not going backward. So if the mechanics are legitimate, why the reputation? Because it is one of the most missold products in the entire industry. 3 ways specifically. Number 1, the fantasy illustration. An agent runs a projection at a high assumed rate, holds it flat for 40 years, and shows you a giant number at the bottom. Real index credits move up and down, caps can change, and no honest person can promise you a straight line. If the pitch leans entirely on one beautiful projected number, that is the red flag, not the product. Number 2, the wrong design. This is the big one. The same policy can be built to maximize the death benefit, which maximizes the agent's commission, or built to maximize your cash value, which is what makes the strategy actually work. Built wrong, the cost of insurance quietly eats your growth for years and you feel ripped off. Built right, with the death benefit kept as low as the rules allow and the policy funded properly, it behaves completely differently. Same product, opposite outcome. Number 3, sold to the wrong person. An IUL is a long game that rewards consistent funding for years. If someone is barely covering their bills, has high interest debt, or has not touched a simpler tax-advantaged account yet, an IUL is almost never the first move. Selling it to that person is how the product earns its bad name. Let's talk costs honestly, because this is where the critics land their best punch. An IUL has real internal charges: cost of insurance, administrative fees, and rider charges. In the early years especially, those costs are a drag, which is exactly why an underfunded or badly designed policy disappoints. The costs are not hidden if your agent actually shows you the full illustration, the guaranteed columns and all. If they only show you the pretty page, walk. Now, the other side, fairly the upside. Growth linked to the market with a floor so you never take an index loss. Tax advantage growth and access to your cash value through policy loans without a taxable event when structured correctly, and a death benefit protecting your family the entire time. The catch: your gains are capped, the costs are real, and it only works if it is designed for cash value and funded consistently. It is a savings and protection tool, not a lottery ticket. And here's what almost none of the scam videos mention. A properly built IUL can include living benefits. With the right riders, if you are diagnosed with a critical illness like cancer or a heart attack, a chronic illness where you cannot perform daily activities, or a terminal illness, you can accelerate a large part of your death benefit and use that money while you are alive to cover treatment, replace income, or keep your family steady. So this is not only a death benefit, it is protection you can use while you are living, which most traditional investments simply do not offer. The most common counter you will hear is just buy term and invest the difference. And honestly, for a lot of people, that is great advice. If you are disciplined, you have a long runway, and you are comfortable riding market swings, low-cost investing wins on pure growth. The IUL is not trying to beat that. It is a different job. It is for the person who wants tax-advantaged money with a floor, guaranteed access, living benefits, and a permanent death benefit in one place without watching the market every day. Different tool, different person. Not better, not worse. So who is an IUL actually for? It can fit if your basics are already covered. You want tax-advantaged growth with downside protection. You value the living benefits, and you can fund it consistently for the long term. It is not for you if you have high interest debt, you have not used simpler tax-advantaged accounts yet, or you cannot commit to funding it for years. There is no shame in that. It just means it is not your tool, right? If you remember one thing from this video, remember this. With an IUL, the product is almost never the problem. The design, the funding, and the expectations are everything. The exact same 3 letters, IUL, can be a quiet, tax-advantaged foundation or an expensive disappointment, depending entirely on how it was built and who sold it to you. So is an IUL a scam? No. It is a legitimate, decades-old insurance strategy that happens to be one of the easiest products to sell badly. The outrage videos are reacting to the bad sales, and they are right to. But do not let a bad salesperson talk you out of a tool that might genuinely fit you, and do not let a good salesperson talk you into one that does not. Judge the design, not the drama. If you want to know whether an IUL actually fits your situation or whether something simpler makes more sense first, comment the word index or grab my free calculator and my family bank book in the description. I will show you the honest math for your situation, the full illustration, not the fantasy page. No pitch, just the truth nobody bothers to explain.